Ark Beyond Ascension, Part 10. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey. So we're starting off here on our base, looking to make a couple of upgrades. So first and foremost, the thing that I wanted to go through and build as soon as I could was an industrial grill. I was tired of constantly having to worry about food, so I went through and I took out my campfire and I decided to replace it with this enormously large size barbecue, and man, does it look good. And I also went through and got my little smoker on the side here because I plan to make a whole bunch of jerky, as I was going to be needing that for the kibble in the near future. But there was just one problem. I did not have a single piece of wood to my name. So there was a forest just outside my base. I decided it needed a good haircut. So I went through and gave it a nice buzz cut and left it looking like a brand new golf course. And now, as you can tell, I left it in a cutting edge position with a brand new turf degree. This place looked fantastic. So I returned back to my base and I went through and I started up the forges with the wood from the homes of all the creatures I had just taken. And I went through and ensured that I was keeping the charcoal production going and the metal smelting fully down. This was looking to be good. And now the fun began, because I was never going to have to cook me some meat and wait for ages for it to cook yet again. So I went over and I grabbed my bird's meat and I threw it in the grill. Hold on. That did not. I grabbed the raw meat from my argy and I stuck it in the grill. And then we were back to breed, and I found another little offspring, a female 209 that I wanted to keep, and we're going to go through and add her to this breeding factory. Little did this offspring know that the entirety of their life was just going to consist of growing up, being placed there to make babies, and left there for eternity until they got replaced with a better, stronger version in the future, and then she was going to possibly watch her children perish because I did something dumb and have to make me a new one. That was going to be her life. Now, speaking of life, we did go through and accept and recognize 3 new argies into our family, and we went through and got rid of the weak offspring. Now we have 3 more argies we're going to go through and add to this pack here, and you know the absolute best thing about killing all these babies is that we get to eat the babies. Oh, hold on. We eat the babies in Ark. Let's just get that out there. In Ark only, okay? And then once I go through and got all these tasty babies cooked up, I had a whole bunch of prime meat. So I went through and I threw it in the smoker because this was going to make me all the jerky I was going to need in the future. And I went through and I stared at the fire, not regretting a single child that I had killed. Things were looking good. Our factory was coming along. We had a whole bunch of meat, and it was even drying out so we could feed it to the dinosaurs in the future. There was nothing wrong with this situation whatsoever. And then I went through and I took in the scenery around me, realizing how beautiful it was out there and how much chaos and death and destruction happened at our base. In the morning, I set out for Carno Island, as I was not having too much luck with the beaver dams for cementing paste. So my goal was to go through and find me a bunch of scorpions and farm up a whole bunch of chitin. But unfortunately, the entirety of the island was plagued with Carnos and Ceratosauruses. Just the absolute most difficult, painful thing to deal with. I would much rather fight raptors or rexes. And then there was the big bad boy. There was an alpha Carno from earlier in the playthrough who was tempting. Even though we had got completely demolished in the previous fight against an alpha Carno with the argy, I still thought this was a fantastic idea. So I proceeded to go through and shoot him in the face with my bow and hoped and prayed everything would go well. And then it absolutely did not. I did not have my argy on passive, so things took a turn for the worst. The Carno started charging up the hill here, and I could not for the life of me board my argy. And I did go through and bring Runt along, and I was quickly regretting this entire trip. Runt was on top, argy was in the water, and I thought I was gonna die. I did not know what it was gonna do, and I was just praying that when I stepped out of this water, that the Carno was not there. And there he was. Oh my goodness. He wanted a bite out of me. Now I really had no idea what to do, nor where it was going to be safe, and I felt like I was going to lose everything, and this was going to be my first death in the series. But I went through and I decided to swim out to the deeper water, as he seemed to be too dumb to swim. And then I saw Runt just hanging out in the water, chilling without a worry in the world, acting as if he was on summer vacation, not acting as if he was about to get eaten. He just had not a worry in the world. Now I went through and I was actually able to go through and bite at his ankles like a little chihuahua, and he just really couldn't do anything. He was dumb. Little did I know at this entire time, where I thought he was doing absolutely nothing, he was actually gorging my argy and completely destroying him. But I thought things were growing fantastic. I would not realize that until I saw his wings and realized my argy was not in a good place, that this was not good. So I called him over, hoping he would follow me and stay away from the Carno. And then I saw it there on screen. My argy had just died. He had died from the bleed effect. And then quickly the Carno turned on me, trying to make me his next victim. But I swam out into the deeper water, and thankfully there was nothing in this water that wanted to eat me, or this could have gone terribly wrong. And things got even worse. I was completely out of stam, and I no longer had the capability to go through and swim on my saber, and I had next to no oxygen, so we needed to get out of the water to go through and to recoup. But the moment we took a breath of fresh air, the Carno was there ready to strike, ready to end our lives and put us in a grave just like he had the argy. Now, Runt did take a couple of hits, and it did hurt, so I had to go through and swim away, and I was terrified that this fight was going to end terribly. I then realized it would be best that if I ate Runt, because if I did not, the Carno would. And there he was on the rock, standing tall, menacing above us, letting us know that he would be there, waiting the moment we got out of the water. So I tried to hit him from afar with the crossbow, hoping that I would be able to deal some form of damage and hopefully make this fight easier and allow us the freedom to finally leave this island. But all I ended up doing was pissing him off. He came back even angrier than before, and he nearly killed Runt. It was at this moment that I realized that the only way to survive this fight was for me to put in work. I was going to have to be what killed this Carno. I was going to have to revenge our friends. I was going to need to protect Runt. This fight was up to me. Runt could not do anything, so I told him to stay there and that I would kill this Carno. The battle waged on for what seemed like hours, with me launching arrow after arrow, him charging into the water and splashing about, trying to go through and gorge me with his horns. But I could not be scared. I could not fail, and I could not stop. No matter what happened, I had to keep going. I had to defeat this Carno. I had to go through and revenge our friends, and everything that this island had taken from us. It was now that I had to prove why it is that we were here, and that we could conquer this island, and that we would ascend. This Carno would not stand in my way. I was gonna make sure we won this fight, no matter what. This was for Friend, this was for Spike, and it was for Talon and Big Bird, and this was for every other creature that would become our friend. We would prevail and show them that you can do anything. And we aimed our crossbow, and we finally let loose the arrow that killed this creature. And then Runt and I climbed up onto the shore, and there he was, this monstrosity that had taken everything from us, lay there lifeless. So I allowed Runt to do the honors and gobble up his body and get all that sweet prime meat. Now, even though we had emerged victorious, we faced a new dilemma. There was a new problem at hand, and that our argy had died, so we had absolutely no way to get off this island. We were stranded and alone, just the two of us. So I figured either one, I would have to find myself a new argy who was strong enough to go through and cross this ocean, or I was going to need to build a raft. But priorities set in, and I decided to loot this drop instead. And the drop was not all that great, as nothing was going to help us with our current predicament, and I already had a Dodicker settle that was a little bit higher than that. Now, not knowing what to do and feeling extremely unsafe and vulnerable, I decided we were going to go through and hop around the island and try and make our way back to the safe island and hope we could possibly find an argy or build ourselves a raft if the trees on that island had regrown. But then, the moment I got around the corner, there was a Ceratosaurus stalking the beach, waiting for its prey, and I knew that I stood absolutely no chance against this creature, and I realized he actually had a buddy. There was not one, but two of them, which would spell certain death for us. So I turned our saber-toothed mountain climbing kitty into an underwater sea creature for the next small bit of duration, and we took a very long swim all the way around the coast, hoping that he would not see us or come after us, because I knew that we could not do anything against him. And then finally, after what felt like an Olympic triathlon, we had finally arrived at the safe beach, and I stumbled upon the very best thing I had seen all day. There was a raft. I had actually left my raft here from earlier in the playthrough because I flew back with my argy and blueberry, and I had not taken this raft with us during that time. And I was extremely thankful for my laziness. Now, I was curious if there was an argy nearby that could go through and replace our friend, but then I saw yet another Alpha Carno, And yeah, I wasn't going to do that again. That literally took me forever. My bow's almost broken. I got no arrows, and that is certain death. So I decided, after seeing nothing but a whole bunch of things that wanted to eat me and no easy birds to take home, that we were going to set out on the raft. Then, just as I was about to leave the island, I went through and I made sure there was no whales that were pursuing me, and I noticed an argy on the very tip of the island. This was literally the best place that this argy could be, and I went through and took a look at it. And this was literally like the game had reincarnated our argy. It was a level 140, the same level of argy that we actually lost, and so I was beyond tempted. I did not see anything else bad in the area, so I figured we would go through and try and tame this guy. Now, I was afraid to walk up to the trees to build my simple trap, as that would have been the best thing to do, but I decided we would just shoot him with the bow and hope for the best. Pretty quickly, I had fired enough arrows to actually go through and cause him to start torpor running, and he was taken off. Now, this is not what I wanted, and I was really hoping we could go through and stop him before he got any farther into the island or landed over the water, as that would be the absolute worst thing possible. Now, I was really hoping I could hit some crazy arrow far off in the distance, and I hoped that it would knock him out. And I was not having any luck. But fortunately for me, I had actually inflicted just enough torpor to where he fell down just across the island. And then the absolute worst thing happened. I was chopping down some trees nearby so I could make some wooden spikes to make sure this bird got protected, and then I heard a deathly scream. Now, I knew exactly what that roar belonged to, so I immediately started hightailing it, and I thought he was after me, so I ran straight toward the corpse, but it turns out I almost ran into him. And then I turned around to make sure he wasn't following me, and Runt literally scared me so bad, so I picked him up and decided we needed to take Runt with us, or Runt was not going to make it. And we went through and hopped as fast as we could all the way back to our raft, hoping that we would get here before he would be able to follow us, and I didn't even hesitate to look. I just took off, and we sailed across the open ocean, praying that there would not be another disaster that struck today. Finally, we had made it home without any problems, and then I realized that I was going to have to go through and name this argy, since he died for us in battle, and he deserved a proper resting place with a name. And I'm going to be honest with you, I had no idea what to name him. My creative juices were not flowing, and I could not think of anything creative whatsoever. So I figured we would go through and name him for the reason he got killed, and I went with chitin argy, as that only seemed fitting, as that was the whole reason we were there on the island, and he got killed in the first place. Then I went through and I turned around, and I was greeted by a whole bunch of tiny argy babies. Well, at least the eggs anyway, and that was actually a good thing, as we had to go through and replace our fallen friend, because we definitely wanted somebody we could still traverse on, and all these guys were busy making babies, so I didn't want to interrupt them. I then went through and tried to hatch up some more of the argy eggs so we could raise our fallen friend, and they would not hatch as it was far, far too hot. So I laid down one of the metal foundations that I had gotten from a drop and crafted up an AC and hoped that this would give it enough air so I could actually hatch these eggs. And it worked. Well, kind of. They would not go through and hatch there on the platform. I could not get them to go through and actually hatch, but then for some reason slightly farther away, it was working just fine. So I unloaded every single argy egg that I had and I started hatching them all. Now, at this point, I'd actually gone through 25 different argy eggs, and not a single one had a mutation. Now, these were the final 3 that I had, and they were eggs that had just been laying, so I was hoping I actually got something decent from these, because I needed a new bird to ride. And thankfully, the game had heard me, as it had gifted me a level 211. It had a mutation, and I did not know where, but it was better than what I had, so I figured I would race him up since he was stronger than the rest. My new bird buddy had become fully grown, and I had managed to get a 100% imprint on him, and I knew that this bird was going to be stronger than ever before. But we will have to see what it is that this bird is capable of in the next episode. Alright guys, well, I hope you did enjoy today's video. If you did, then please consider leaving a like and subscribing if you're not already.